All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day two of the online AWD1100 C# programming class for the summer 2023 semester at Rankin Technical College. This is what we're going to do today. Now, I said here we will first review what we did yesterday, taking any questions. I've already had people who have emailed me with questions, and that's great. I want the dialogue to keep taking place. But I want to mention something yesterday that I didn't talk about that I should have. So let me just come right here and I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to get rid of it right away, but I'm just going to call it hello. All right, so I've got this new folder. It's called hello and there's nothing in it. All right. Now, if you go in here and you you right mouse click on it, or you open the folder up and you right mouse click and you choose Git Bash here. All right. There's nothing in there. However, if you do this, if you say git init and hit enter, you should get a Git folder. Now, what if it says this, but you don't see a Git folder? So what if it says initialize Git repository there and you look and there's no Git repository there? Probably what happened was, all right, if you go out and if you literally just go out and open up your file explorer, and how do you do that? You right mouse click right here, and I guess down here, but you can type in file explorer right here. So file explorer. All right, and it just brings this up. So if this happens, and if you think I typed in git init and nothing happened, something may have happened. All right. But what you'll want to do then is when you go through and you take a look in here, all right, then what you will have to do, and I've saved it, so where did I put this? You will have to go view, show hidden items. So there's view, all right, and there's hidden items. If this is unchecked, then notice in my hello folder, it doesn't show anything. However, if I go back in there again and I check hidden items, and now I look, there's Git. So it is there. So I apologize for not mentioning that yesterday. Hey, that's on me. There's going to be times in here where I will forget to tell you something, and I apologize in advance. Or I'll tell you it, but I'll tell you it the next day or whatever. All right. So that's first thing. Okay, so yesterday what we did was we went over chapter one. We got kind of an overview of um, what it looks like basically to be inside of Visual Studio. And we talked about a little bit about what happens when you create a program, save a program. We looked at parts of Visual Studio like the Solution Explorer, the Properties window, the toolbox, etc. And the idea was just to start getting you familiar with this. It's not that everything makes 100% sense. Now, today we're going to go over chapter 2 and chapter 3. And I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit and tell you that in chapter 3, if I go up to page 39, this is what we're making. All right, so you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 labels. One that says subtotal, one that says discount percent, one that says discount amount, and one that says total. We've got 4 text boxes. Out of these 4, 3 are read only, meaning they're grayed out. 1, you put stuff in. All right, so it's not grayed out, it's not read only. In addition, we have 2 buttons. We're going to create this. The only thing we're going to change is we're going to add another button between these 2 called clear. All right, but we're going to make this in just a little bit. And we'll make it, and we'll do it nice and slow. All right. In fact, I even thought of doing this. Maybe we can do it right now. I thought of making it before we even go through the chapter. just so you can see everything that goes on in here. So again, this is invoice total. What I'm going to do is this. I like to do this. This is just me, and maybe I'm a little weird this way. I don't know. But I'm grabbing that. Now I'm going to go and literally draw this. All right. So that's what we're creating in here. All right. So I'm going to take that for now, and I'm just going to leave that in there. But I'm going to start right now by, I'm going to create, it's called invoice total. So I'm going to make a folder called invoice total. All right. So there it is. Now I'm going to start up Visual Studio. All right. And I'm going to create a new project. All right. You've seen me do this before now. I'm going to come in here and do my Windows form. I'm going to find the Windows Forms app.NET framework with C#. I'll double click on it. I'm going to call this invoice total GUI 01. I don't know if I'm going to make another one or not. I don't know, but it's invoice total GUI 01. I don't want to put it in payroll. So I'm going to move over here, click on the desktop, and the first one that should show is the one I just created, which is invoice total. So it now says invoice total. And I will take and just make the name of the solution invoice total as well. So I've got a project that's going to be created in here called invoice total GUI 01. It's being put inside of a folder on my desktop called invoice total, and the solution name will also be invoice total. So I click create, and within a matter of seconds, boom, there it is. There's nothing surprising there. I'm going to click on the form, and just because I like doing this, I'm going to give it a different background color. Let's give it a turquoise. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do so I can see this is I'm going to bring this up, but I'm going to see if I can shrink it down and show both of these on the screen right now. All right, there. So I'm going to do it like that. Now, every time I come over here and click something, this will probably disappear, and that's okay. All right, I could make this narrower, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. If I'm going to start by making my 3 buttons. So there's my first button. As you can see, that already disappeared over here. We'll bring it back in just a second. Copy those buttons twice, and there they are. I'm just trying to lay them out so they're somewhat, I don't know what you'd call it, symmetrical or whatever. So I've got those buttons. What else do we have in here? All right. So we've got our buttons. We need 4 labels here and 4 text boxes. So let's make those next. And the order in which you put in these controls, of course, it technically it matters, but it doesn't matter. If you don't know what I mean, you will. Just put it that way, you will. All right, so I'm going to make that a little wider, maybe to about there. I don't know. And now I've got 4 of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that doesn't look terrible. Now let's put in my labels. Again, you've already seen this from me. I like to come in and make the back color a little different color. So I made it darker, and I'm going to set the auto size to false. All right, so there's that label. Make it a little chunkier, so to speak. And there that is. So I'm going to put these in there. All right. And that pretty much should be the way that my interface is going to look. So let me highlight everything. All right. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the size of my font, which will change the size of everything else. You know that, to 24 bold and Arial. All right. So there you go. Okay. Now it looks like these should be a little bit wider. So let me make them a little bit wider. Ah, why that happens sometimes, but that's on me. Why that doesn't normally happen that badly, but all right, well, let's just do one of them. How's that? Do them one at a time. I don't care. All right. So there's my interface. Doesn't look terrible. Doesn't look great. Looks okay. And as always, I'm going to come in and I'm first going to lock this interface into place. All right. So we've got that. Now, the next thing that it shows on that picture is this says invoice total here. So let's change the name of the form to FRM invoice total. So I'm going to click on the form and I'm going to right mouse click where it says form1.cs and I'm going to rename and I'm going to put in FRM invoice total. Okay, there we go. Says you want to change everything, even the system files, etc. Yes. So that's now changed. I'm going to click again on the form, and for the text for the form, it says form 1 over here. I'm going to change that to invoice total and hit enter. And now that has changed. Okay. All right. I got a great start. So remember what these 4 things here say, because I don't. So they are subtotal, discount percent, discount amount, and total. So I know this is subtotal. So I'm going to call this one LBL subtotal. And I'm going to put the text for that to subtotal with a colon. And I know this one is total. So the text will be total. And the name will be LBL total. All right, so those 2 are done. Let's do the associated text boxes next. So I'll make this TXT subtotal, and I'll make this TXT total. All right, and then this one was discount, discount percent and discount amount. So this is discount percent. And the text will be discount percent with a colon there. Now, you can already tell I didn't make this wide enough. All right, let's change it. Let's go and highlight everything here and let's unlock it. All right. And after I've unlocked it, let's move this over a bit and make it a little wider. And then let's make these a little wider as well. And now there's enough room with discount percent. All right. This down just a little bit. All right. And I'm going to relock my interface. There we go. All right. So this is discount percent. So this one should be also. So that'll be TXT discount percent, which makes this the discount amount. So this will be LBL discount amount. And the text on there will be discount amount with a colon at the end and a space between discount and amount. All right, it's looking pretty good. And let's make this one here TXT discount amount. All right, just because I like doing it this way, I'm going to grab these fields right here in my text box and I'm going to center the text in there. So that's done. And in here, I want this text to be right justified. You can always change it. If you like it centered, do that. All right. I like it right justified here. Okay. It's just the way that I am. That's all. All right. Now we've got our 3 buttons. This first one here will be calculate. So I'm going to set the name to BTN calculate. And I will set the text on the button to calculate. All right, this second one here will be BTN clear. And the text on the button will be clear. And finally, the last button will be BTN exit. And the text on the button will be exit. Now, I didn't show you yesterday, and it's not a real gee whiz type of thing, but what I can do, I think I've renamed everything on here, all my controls. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the form itself, 12 controls. So if I come up here where it currently says BTN exit and I click that down arrow, it shows me everything that's in here. And you'll notice I did forget something. Looks like text box 2 has not been renamed. But I've got BTN exit, BTN calculate, BTN clear, so those are all done. BTN exit, again, the name of the form, 1 label, 2 label, 3 label, 4 label, and just text box 2. That's what this one right here. So this should be TXT discount amount. All right, it says it's not valid. It's probably because I named this one discount amount as well. So let's see. Let me cancel. This one should be discount percent. All right. Oh, notice I named the last one discount amount. This should be TXT total. And this should be TXT discount amount. All right, now let's go have another look. And now you can see everything's been changed. Okay, I think it's all correct now. Now, a couple more things, and then we'll run it to see what it looks like. First, let's set it up so that when you hit the enter key, the calculate button runs. And when you hit the escape key, the clear button runs. Remember from yesterday, the way we do this, I click on the form and I set the accept button to BTN calculate. And I set the cancel button to BTN clear. All right, now those two are done. Now let's set what's called our tab order. Right now, the tab order is always set to the way you put the stuff in originally. So it's probably set to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something like that. Now, this is the one that we're going to put information into. These are all going to be read-only. All right, I can make them read-only right now. So I want my tab order to go 0, 1, 2, 3. That's all that matters, but I'll go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to go view tab order. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And do another view tab order. All right. And now when I run this, it is centered. It doesn't look centered. I'll have to look at that. But there's my cursor, and these are read only. Now, I have put no code into calculate, so there isn't any code in there. No code into clear. There's no code in there, and no code into exit. That's actually done in chapter 3. All right. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to come in here and build the form so we can concentrate on what's explained in chapter 2 and not get hung up on everything else. Now, why don't I also do this? I've got this thing called invoice total. You can see what's in there. Right now, there's just invoice total, GUI, all right, and my solution, etc. But I'm going to open this up again, just double click on it, and I'm going to right mouse click on it, and I'm going to choose here, Git Bash here. and I'm going to open that up. All right. And it shows me right where I am. I'm in the invoice total on my desktop. So I'm going to type in here, get init, and then I should see a kind of a washed out looking folder that's called .git. So git, in fact, if I right now type in git status, I get an error because I don't have any repository. I didn't create anything. So git init, and there's my git folder. All right. Now, all I did was start that. I'm not going to do a commit or anything else because I haven't really put much in here. You can commit whenever you want to commit. You can do that whenever you want, but I'm just going to leave it like this. All right. Now I'm going to jump back into the book into chapter 2, which starts on page 33. So, in the last chapter, you learned the basic skills for working with Visual Studio and took a tour. Now we'll learn how to use Visual Studio to design the user interface for a Windows Forms app. I already showed it to you. So you can see again, we've got 3 parts in this chapter: how to get started, how to design a form, and how to finish your design. There is no code in this chapter. That said, when we reach the end of the chapter, before we start chapter 3, the next chapter we're on to, I'll put some code in there. Okay? All right. So how to get started, we've already looked at this. All right. The dialogue that comes up when you tell it to create a new project. All right. And sometimes people have you choose the Windows Forms app that doesn't say .NET Framework. I always choose the one that does say .NET Framework. All right. But they tell you basically what to click in here, how you can change your startup and your development options, etc. There really shouldn't be anything that we have to go and monkey with in here. All right. How to configure a new Windows Forms app. Well, when it comes up, you've already seen this. We gave it our project the name of Invoice Total GUI 01. The location, I made a folder first that I called Invoice Total. All right. On the desktop, and I called the solution invoice total as well. All right. Now with the framework, mine doesn't come up like this, and I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe yours does, but I'm not going to worry about that for right now, at least. All right. All right. So how to design a form. On the next page, you're going to see the form we've already put in. And as they mention here, the form actually consists of 11 controls. They say 10. 4 text boxes, 4 labels, and 2 buttons. Ours actually has 12. We put in 3 buttons, and the form itself is a control. All right. So the idea, again, when you look at this, and we've already got a lot of this done, basically, right? Is you can put in a number there like 225. And if we hard code into here 10%, 225 times 0.1 is 2250. 225 minus 2250 is 20250. So that's how they get all of their results. And they explain that in here as well. All right. Now you'll notice one thing I didn't do is by the calculate button, the C has got an underline. By the exit button, the X has got an underline. Let's put those in there. All right. The way you do that is when you come in there and you put in the text, if you put an ampersand at the beginning, so I've got ampersand calculate, there's the underline. You can't have underline C there and there. So for clear, I'll use the L there, the second letter. So it'll be C underscore LEAR. Now that one's done. Exit by default, typically, people usually use the X, not the E. So ampersand. Now they're all there. All right. A little bit hard to see. And I believe when you run the program, I don't think it even shows. It's operational, but I don't think it's going to even show when we run this. All right. Yeah, you can't see it. Let me look at one more thing here. I did not change my location to center screen. So let's see now if it's in the middle of the screen. There we go. All right, looking good. All right, so as they mentioned, text boxes are used. Typically, they're used to either allow the user to enter input information or to just display information. Labels are used basically as headers or headings. Buttons are typically where you put your code. All right. So as it says there, a label displays text on a form, a text box lets you enter text on a form, a button initiates form processing when the button is clicked. Now, as far as adding controls, I mentioned this yesterday, but this is where they're saying it in here. All right. It says once you add a control to the form, you can resize it. It says the easiest way is to drag it from the toolbox right out to the form. You've already seen this. We've already done things where we've come in and, for example, if I wanted this right here, if I wanted to put another label here, could just take it and drag it and boom, I got another label. All right. That's one way of doing it. All right. So that is one way that we could put it out there. Says a second way is to click on the control in the toolbox, then click the form at the location where you want to add the control. So let's try that one. Let's try a different control here. So I will click on button, and then I will click here, and there's a button. So that's a second way I can do it. And then they mention, I believe, a third way as well that you can do it, to double click the control that you want to add. So we will add a different type of control. I'll just go up here to this checkbox, double click it, and there's a checkbox right there. All right, so that's three different ways that you can add controls. Which one is best? The one that works the best for you. Okay, all right. After you've added controls to the form, you can work with several controls at once. You have seen this. For instance, I highlighted all of these text boxes at once, and you may or may not have noticed when I did that, but if I click on this text, just one text box, I don't know how many things it shows here. Okay, let's say 40, 50, 100, I don't know. But if I highlight all of them, many of these things are going to show, but not all of them. Because now anything I put in here is going to be on all four text boxes and not just on one. All right. Now, typically, if you're going to do this and select multiple controls, you select multiple controls that are of the same type, like all of your text boxes or all of your labels or all of your buttons. Now, you saw me do what's called lassoing, where I came in here and kind of drew this, not imaginary, but whatever you want to call it, square around everything here. Okay. And then I right mouse clicked and shows lock controls to lock everything. All right. So sometimes, yeah, it is possible for you to choose everything. And it says, although these techniques may be hard to visualize, you'll find they're relatively easy to use. All you need is a little practice. And that's the idea behind the chapter. All right. So as it shows here on page 41, this is a form after some controls have been added to it. All right. Pretty much this is the program that they're creating. So they made four labels, they made four text boxes, they have a button, and they're going to add another button. So again, they tell you different ways that you can add controls to the form and how you can select and work with controls. All right. So there's, a lot of this, again, as I've already mentioned, and as they mention in the book, you will learn by doing. By me coming in here and just boom, saying this to you, it isn't probably going to help a lot. It isn't probably going to make a boatload of sense. You learn somewhat by reading the book. You learn somewhat by listening to me, but you learn basically by practicing. And also look at it. I'm going to sound almost like a bad baseball coach or something, but celebrate your failures. All right. Because if you try doing something and it doesn't work, but you learn from it, that actually is a good thing. All right. So after you put controls on a form, you set the controls properties. We've looked at this already, just so you know, and I'm going to do it and then undo it. But let's just pretend for a second I wanted all these buttons to be green. I don't know why I would, but I'm just pretending. So I've highlighted all of them. I'm going to go over and I'm going to find back color. All right. And let's see, back color. Oh, well, I don't know why it's saying that, but it is. So let's see. If I choose green, they're green. All right, I've changed all three of them at once. Now, I just did a Control Z to undo that, but the point is, I could change all of them at one time. I could change them individually. I could make each one of them a different color. I could make one a different size if we wanted to. I like when my programs look fairly symmetrical like this, when stuff kind of looks the way that I think it should look. Now, you may not agree with that. All right. Please make sure, especially when you're taking your hands-on tests, that if you're told to do something, whatever it is, those are your requirements and follow them. All right. Okay. So let's go back to the book here. So the properties window displays the properties for whatever the current object is. All right. To change a property, you go into your properties window and change it. That is changing it at what's called design time. So if I come in here and like I showed you, if I were to change the color of this button, I'm not going to, but if I change the color of this button, like I showed you before and made it green, that's doing it in the properties window. I can also do it in code by writing code. So that's another way of doing it. And there are certain things that you can change while a program is running in code that you cannot change in your properties window. Virtually everything in the properties window that you see here, you are able to change in code itself. All right. I could be wrong. I don't think there's anything that, that where there's, okay. Now, I'm going to tell you something, but I can't show you this. And this is the particular right here. This is this particular bullet that they show. Now, let's suppose for a minute I wanted to learn more about buttons. Okay. If you look up at the top of your screen, I'm sorry, if you look up at the top of your keyboard, you should see 12 buttons that are marked F1, F2, F3 through F12. If you highlight a control and click on a control, when you're in Visual Studio and you hit the F1 button, you get information about that control. So if I wanted information about buttons, I could click on this and hit F1. Now, I'm not going to do that because when you are like I am right now, when you are lecturing in Microsoft Teams and you hit F1, it means something else inside of Teams. So that's why I'm not going to do it. But that is a way to get help. Another way to get help, and I did show you this yesterday, but I'll mention it again today, and that is not there. That is, you can always go out to docs, docs.microsoft.com, and that sends you to learn.microsoft.com. So either one will get you there. So if I wanted to know more about C# buttons now, I could type in C# buttons. And sooner or later, it's going to come up with something I can use. All right. The events one might help you. I don't know. All right. And if that doesn't help, you can always Google, type in C# buttons. And typically when you do that, one of the first things you're going to find is learn.microsoft.com. All right. And there's all you might want to know about buttons, including they show the fields, the properties that are in there, etc. These are all the things that are in your properties window. But if you want to learn more, for instance, about the is visible, you could highlight it, click, and boom, they'll give you some stuff in here. And also typically, not always, but typically, if you go through it enough, they'll give you some kind of a code example. All right. Common properties for forms and controls. These are not, of course, the only ones. All form controls, including the form itself, should have a name. Now, some books don't name their labels. They'll just call their labels label 1, label 2, etc. You can do that. I'd recommend not doing that. And the reason is I just think it's easier to name every single control that you have. To me, that makes more sense. All right. To me, that makes more sense. All right. The text property. Labels have typically have a text property associated with them. Okay. Text boxes typically are empty when you start, so they don't have a text property associated with them, etc. Now, when you look at here, notice the accept button, cancel button, and start position. We've already done all those. I've shown you on several programs now how to set the accept button. I've shown you how to set the cancel button. And I've shown you how to set our start position. So none of those are new. In addition, down here, and I'll show you a couple in just a second. We did not go over enable. We will in a minute, but I've shown you read only. We just did that with the 3 text boxes. I used view tab order to set the tab index. All right. And tab stop, I never work with that, so you can if you want to. And I've shown you text align. Now I'm going to show you enable just so you see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 buttons that we have and just temporarily, those 3 buttons, I'm going to grab the property that says enabled, which is set to true, and I'm going to set it to false. Now you look and you go, nothing changed. That's not true because watch what happens when I run the program. These buttons are now all disabled. I cannot click on them and have anything happen. All right. If I want to re-enable them, I just go again down to enabled. I want to make sure all of these are highlighted. Go down to enabled, which is set to false, and either click the down arrow and change to true, or just double click on it and change it to true. Now they've been enabled, so notice that I can click on them. They don't do anything yet because there's no code associated with them. All right. All right. How to add navigation features? Well, again, they mentioned the tab order. I've already shown it to you. They mention access keys. What do those do? All right. Remember, that's that underline by putting the ampersand in there. Let's look at that and after we put some code in, okay? All right. And I've shown you the accept and the cancel button. So nothing new there either. So that's adjusting the tab order. They might give you a different way of doing it. I try to give you the most intuitive way of doing something that I can think of. All right. I showed you how to set access keys. I showed you the accept button and the cancel button. It says in chapter 10, you'll learn how to use the tab order view. All right. And that's kind of what we've already done. All right. Now, at the end of the chapter here, they give you the property settings for the invoice total form. So this is what they call things. You'll notice they didn't rename their labels. All right. And mine might not be exactly the same as theirs. So again, I called mine. Did I call mine subtotal discount percent, discount amount? And there's a BTN calculate. They're pretty much the same thing. All right. I don't know if my tab order is the exact same thing, but we pretty much now have the same thing in here. All right. So how to finish your design. It says when you're working on a project, you may want to change the name of some of the files from their defaults. Then you'll want to save files with their new names. It says how to rename the files in a project. Well, I already showed you that by right mouse clicking on the name of the form and choosing rename. You can also rename a project. So if you misspelled it, you can rename a solution. So if you misspelled it or decide you want to call it something else. All right. And that's what they're saying in here. You should always, after you make enough changes in here, come in and do a file, save all. It never hurts. And that's it for the chapter. So let's do a couple more things before we move on into chapter 3. All right, this was a fairly short chapter. The next chapter is longer. All right, so let's do a couple more things in here. What do I mean? Well, the first thing that I want to do in here, and I said I'd send it to you yesterday, and I guess I probably did not. It's not what I want. Let's see, use this. I told you yesterday that what I would do, and I didn't, I apologize, was to send you this code for the exit button. And I'll make sure that I do that. Maybe I'll even do it during the break. So the reason I'm telling you that is I'm going to come in and put that code into our program right now in the exit button. You remember from yesterday, that'll bring up a message box. And the text on the message box will be, do you really want to exit the program? The title of the message box will be exit now. It will have a yes button and a no button on it. And the icon will be a question mark. When it comes up, if you click on the yes button, it'll exit the program. All right. And if you click on the no button, you'll stay in there. So let's see if that worked. All right. So exit. If I say no, I stay right here. Exit. If I say yes, the program ends. That was pretty simple. Next, let's figure out, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 fields here. So when we click clear, we want 5 things to happen. Clear this, clear this, clear this, clear this, and set the focus back here. Okay, we may have to change this because I think they hard code in here the discount percent, but for now, I'll just do it like that. So txt subtotal.text equals double quote, txt discount percent dot text equals double quote, txt discount amount dot text equals double quote, txt total dot text equals double quote, and txt subtotal dot focus. And again, I can, after the fact, go back in and line these up so they look like little soldiers if I want to do that. All right, so that should now be working. File save all. We will run this again. The only one I can put information into is here. But if I click down here, okay, and I click clear, you'll notice it did clear and it put my cursor back there. So these two things now appear to be working. So the only one that's left is calculate. I am going to put a little code in here, but we'll change it. So let's set this up. Let's set this up. So we'll say that everybody who uses this site gets a 10% discount right there. Okay, so I'm going to put in here 10%. That's what I'm going to put in there is 10%. All right, don't worry. Don't worry about putting it in there. We will put it in. Okay, and if I come in here and put 100 at 10%, that would mean I save $10. So that would be the discount amount. And 100 minus $10 will be $90. So that's everything I want in here. Okay, so let's make some variables in here. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to say I'm going to make 4 decimal variables. So decimal subtotal, decimal discount percent, decimal discount amount, and decimal total. Now, I did not initialize these variables, so to my knowledge at least, these will automatically all be set to 0. Well, I said let's hard code that percent in. So let's say here equals 0.1 because that is 10%. Since it's a decimal, I need to put the letter M there. Again, I can make it a lowercase m as well, but I like using uppercase. I'm just used to doing that. All right. So remember, we're not checking yet. So the program will blow up if we put something non-numeric into our subtotal field. But I'm going to say subtotal equal decimal dot parse txt subtotal dot text. Okay. So again, that line that you see right here, line 27, that line is saying, take whatever we put in here, which remember goes in as a string, and convert it into a decimal number. It will blow up. It will blow up if we put something non-numeric in or leave it blank. So notice if I run this, leave this blank, and click calculate, it's going to blow up. Input string was not in the correct format. It throws a system format exception. We looked at that a little bit yesterday. All right. But that's the first thing. All right. Now we've already got our discount percent in there. Okay. So our discount amount is going to be equal to our subtotal times our discount percent. Okay. And our total is going to be equal to our subtotal minus our discount amount. Okay. Believe it or not, we're done, except we have to basically put everything in its place. Let me line these up so you can see exactly what's going on. All right. And now I'm going to come in here and say, okay, let's see. The subtotal's already in there, so we don't have to do anything with that. The discount percent, txt discount percent dot text equals discount percent dot toString, but we want it to be of type percentage. So I put a P in there. Again, it can be an uppercase P or a lowercase p. I now have my subtotal in there, and I have my discount percent in there. All right. I need my discount total or discount amount dot text, and that's equal to discount amount dot toString, and that'll be currency because that's a number, a dollar and cents figure. All right. And then finally, I'll need my total. So txt total dot text equals total, and we'll again make that a currency. Okay. That should be everything. Let's look. All right. Well, we're going to make some changes to this in the next chapter, but I'm just giving you the way that we could write this for right now. All right. So file, let's just run it. If I put 100 in here, I've set this up as 10%. So this should now say 10% here. This should say $10, and 100 minus $10, this should say $90. And you can see that it does. Now, the only thing I might want to change is when I clear now, this clears. And it's not a problem that it clears. If I put in here $250, then this should still be 10%. This should be $25, and that should be 225. And you can see that it is. So as of right now, everything that we have in the program, everything that's in here appears to be working. All right. So this is what I'm going to do. All right. And that is I'm going to come in here and I am going to do some work with GitHub. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to type in git add dot. What that does is basically it lets Git know that everything that that I've made a bunch of changes or I've done something where I want to be able to save what I've done. So I hit enter and all it does is it gives me that. But notice before when we typed in git status, we got an error. If I type in git status now, it shows me all these files that have changed. Some of them I've changed directly. Some of them were changed for me. Okay. I'm going to clear my screen and I'm going to say git commit minus M, and I'm going to say initial commit invoice total GUI app, and I'll put today's date on it, which is 5/16/2023. All right, and let me hit enter, and it's letting me know that it did all this stuff. All right, that's all fine. So this is called invoice total. All right, so let me copy this. And now I'm going to go out to GitHub. All right, and I want to see if I've got a repository called invoice total, and I'm hoping I don't. It says it's available. All right, so I went out to GitHub. You can click up here and choose new repository, or there was a plus sign over there. And then in here, I put invoice total. I make mine public. Yours are typically going to be private, and you will send me an invite. We can look at that a little bit later today. All right, so making that public invoice, and it is available. I click create repository, and then my code up here changes. And it says you should do a git init. We already did that. We don't need a readme. We did a commit already. We're not branching. That's if you're sharing with other people. We're not. So I want this git remote line that's right here. I want to copy that to the clipboard. And I want to come back into here and I want to run that line. Right now, if I say git remote -v, notice what it does. It says right now it doesn't know where to send this. Where is the remote location? But if I copy in that line that I just showed you, now if I hit git remote -v, now it says, oh, this should go to JP Scott Rankin invoice total.git. That's where I want it to go. You'll also notice that it says both fetch and push there. All right. Fetch means that you're grabbing something from GitHub and you are copying it to Git or to your machine. Push means that you're taking something from your machine and you want to send it to GitHub. So we're using the same thing for both, which is what we'd want. Now, most of you, when you type yours, you will then say git push -u origin, and you will say main. I created my GitHub account years ago where everything was still master. Sometimes for whatever reason, some students still have master there and some don't. Some have main. I don't know why that is. So I'm going to hit enter. It spins for a little bit. That was it. And now if I go back into GitHub and I refresh, there's my program. Okay. Now, who cares? Well, I'm going to go in and make changes to it. Okay. Just so you know, I'm going to go in and make changes to it. But the thing about Git and GitHub, a versioning control system, is if I go in now and I make multiple changes to the program and I discover or decide when I get done, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I can revert back to this copy if I want to do that or need to do that. All right. And that's a pretty important thing. Okay. So it is working. Everything is cool the way it is. All right. Now, there is no one on with me right now. That's totally fine. But the reason I'm telling you that is typically right now, I would go in and I would give a 10-minute break. Well, I'm not going to do that. I've got my water here. So I'm just going to go on and do the next chapter. So I'm going to jump right into chapter 3 of our textbook. At the end of each one of these chapters, you'll notice I'm not assigning any of this, but there are exercises here. Design the invoice total form and experiment with the properties of the form and its controls, etc. So there's some stuff you might want to do. Now, just so you know, with all those exercises, you're given starting files and you're given the actual solutions. So if you try something in here and it doesn't work, you can always go back to the solution. All right. So we're up to chapter 3. It says in the last chapter, you'll learn how to design the form. In this chapter, you'll learn how to code and test the form. It says when you're done, you should be able to develop simple apps on your own. Should have been on, but they put of your own. I guess either one would work. So you'll notice we have 4 parts in here again. An introduction to coding, how to code a form, more coding skills, and how to run, test, and debug a project. Now, they're going to make changes in here to what I put in for the calculate button. What I will do when we get to that point is if there is a big difference between my code and their code, I'll comment out my code. I'll leave it in there, but I will comment it out so that if any of you would prefer or would want us to be able to see either one or whatever, if you want to be able to kind of compare and contrast what I did versus what the book did, you'll be able to do so. Okay? All right. Little longer chapter than the last one. So they start with an introduction to coding. And this here is an introduction to object-oriented programming. Why they decided to put this in here, I don't know. The whole, I don't know what section it is in the book. We can go back and look. It doesn't really matter. All right. But if we go back here and we look here, I'm going to do this for your benefit as well as mine. But if you remember, there are 5 sections in the book. Section 3 in the book, which is chapters 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, are all on object-oriented programming. All of them are on that. But let me give you my take on object-oriented programming. I may even end up repeating this when we get to that point in the semester. I don't know. All right. Virtually everything that you work with in a C# program involves you using classes. Believe it or not, you've already been using them. What do I mean? Well, if we look here at what we've been working on, what we have are 3 examples. We've got 3 button objects of the button class, calculate, clear, and exit. We've got 4 text boxes of the text box class, so 4 text box objects, 1 for the subtotal, 1 for the discount percent, 1 for the discount amount, and 1 for the total. We've got 4 label objects of the label class, a subtotal label, a discount percent label, a discount amount label, and a total label. So That's all fine. I can spit that stuff out at you, and it may or may not make sense. So let's try to look at it this way. This is the other way I've explained this, and I don't know if this will help your understanding or not, but I'm going to give it to you like this anyway. Imagine that wherever you live, across the street from where you live, is basically a very huge empty lot. We're going to pretend that it is several hundred acres. I don't care how many acres, just imagine that. All right. So a developer buys that lot and decides that they have to put in streets and sewers and everything else. But when they get done, they'll have enough room in that to make up a neighborhood where they'll be able to put 100 houses into that lot. Okay. So they commission an architect, and the architect comes up with 5 different house plans. And they decide they're just going to stack them basically. They'll be in 20 different rows. Plan 1, plan 2, plan 3, plan 4, plan 5. Then in the next row, plan 1, plan 2, etc. Hopefully you get the idea. Each one of those 5 house plans would be a class, just like a class, like for a house, a class is a blueprint from which you can make things. So where a house blueprint would be something that you could use to make houses, all right? A blueprint in C# is something from which you can make objects. So we made 3 button objects from the button class, 4 text box objects from the text box class, 4 label objects from the label class, etc. Every time you create an object based off of a class, you are creating an instance of the class. The instance is known as an object. The act of doing this is called instancing or instantiation. Now, they do mention in here, C# is an object-oriented programming language. So in chapter 12, you will learn not only more about existing C# classes, but you will also learn how to create your own classes. All right? So as it says, at that point, you'll be able to understand, or probably will have a much better understanding of classes and objects. So the figure on the next page, and we'll look at in a minute, summarizes class and object concepts. So a class is a blueprint. It's a blueprint about what you want the objects of that class to look like. Now, every object can look different. When you go back and look at our program here, every button looks different. This one says calculate, this one says clear, this one says exit. Now, the way we've set these up, all of them are the same size, all of them have the same kind of font, etc. We didn't have to do that. Same kind of thing in here, and same kind of thing in here. All right. So they say here, there's a form object that has 10 control objects on it. Again, ours has 11. So again, when we look down here, an object is a self-contained unit that combines or contains code and data. All right. A class is a blueprint or a template for the way you want an object to look. An object, again, is an instance of a class. When you create an object from a class, it is known as the act of instantiation or instantiating or instancing an object based off of a class. More than one object instance can be created from a simple class or single class. Again, not the example they have here, but imagine we made a person object. All right, I could make a person object, and I could make I could make a person class, and then I could make a person object based on everybody who's in the C# programming class, no pun intended. And I could say that each person has a height and a weight and a first name and a last name. Let's just leave it at that. That would mean that every time we would add a new person, we would expect they would have a first name, a last name, a height, and a weight. All right. Those things, the first name, last name, height, and weight, are known as properties. As it says, properties define the characteristics of an object. All right. If we said that each person could eat, each person could sleep, each person could drink, those would be methods. They're operations or behaviors that an object can perform. All right. Then there's events. We've already been working with events. The event we've been working with so far in our program have been button clicks. As it says, these are signals that are sent by an object to an application telling it that something has happened that must be responded to. Okay. All right. Then next, we've got properties. It says properties, methods, and events. They're known as the members of the object. Okay. All right. Finally, when you use the form designer, Visual Basic automatically generates C# code. It puts some stuff in there for you based on the form class. When you add controls, again, Visual Studio automatically generates some code for you. Okay. So how do you refer to the stuff that's in here? Well, we've already been doing it. If you remember, we've done stuff like this. TXT, the name of the field or the name of the control dot. So we've said stuff in ours like TXT, I don't know, TXT total dot text equal double quote, for example. So if we look at the examples that we had in here, here are examples right here. So it's the name of the control, TXT discount percent, a dot, then the name of the particular method, or in this case, the property that we want to use. All right. And just to show you this, down here, you may remember this, you may not. This is saying TXT subtotal. Then we're saying dot text. So we're saying for the subtotal, go over to the text property and clear it out. I mentioned to you yesterday, you can also write this as TXT subtotal dot clear. Why am I telling you this? Because in this case, it's the name of the control or of the object dot the name of the property. Here it's the name of the control or object dot the name of a method or a behavior. They do the same thing. Here is another example where we are calling a method. So in these four examples, we are changing the values of properties. In this one, we are calling, or also known as invoking, a method. All right. And that's called the dot operator where there's that period. So there's not really, a lot new there. Okay. So C# is an example of a programming language that is known as an event-driven language. As it says, that means that it works by responding to events that occur on objects. So far, virtually everything that we've done where we want the program to respond has been us clicking one of three buttons. We've clicked a calculate button if we wanted something like that to happen. All right, some kind of a calculation to take place. We have clicked a clear button to clear the controls on the form. And we've clicked an exit button to give the user the opportunity to exit the program if she or he wishes to do so. So to respond to these events, we wrote what were referred to as event handling. When we do that and we put this event handling in, the system generates a lot of code behind the scenes. It does what's called event wiring. Now, when you look here, you don't have to worry about this wiring. All right. But I do want to show you that when we look in here, if I go back to here and I show you what's in here, you'll notice that there are two files in here we have not looked at all. And they are form invoice total.designer.cs and form invoice total.resx. Normally, you don't touch these, but I'm going to bring up the first one. And what you'll notice in here is this is all code. This is all code that's been written from the system. All right. And it's got a bunch of stuff in here. Well, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you remember, if you don't count our form, we've got 11 controls. So as it says, that's the code that got generated when we put those form controls rather, in our form designer or in our form window. All right, so I'm going to close this one. So again, this is the designer. And I'm going to open the other one, okay, which is this one. All right. Well, what the heck is this? It's letting the system know this is just, again, some system stuff, all right, that has been created for us. I've never worked with this at all, so I won't say anything more about it other than usually more than 99% of the time, you should never have to open either one of these files. There's another file down here. I showed you this a little bit the other day. And this is the file, as it says, that runs the program. You may remember yesterday when we did the program, the console program, that we had a main. Well, notice what this is called. This is the main for a GUI. You should never have to touch this yourself. The key line in here is this one. That says, create a new instance of our form and run it. All right. All I'm trying to show you here is, even though we write most of the code to make this happen, there is other code that gets written in the background. All right. To make everything work and work together. All right. Some common control events. Well, the click and the double click are typically used, like I said, on buttons. We haven't done anything with double click, and we won't do much of anything with it. Now, notice there's an enter and a leave. All right. Those are quite often used with a mouse event. All right. So if the focus moves to a control or leaves a control, just to show you these, All right. And, I don't want to goof up the program. It works. Whoops. I don't want to do that. But let's do this. I don't know why we'd want to do this, but let's set it up so that if we take our mouse and we put it over our calculate button, let's have it turn green. If we put it over the clear button, let's have it turn yellow. And if we put it over the exit button, let's have it turn red, kind of like stoplight controls. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to click here on the calculate button. This is over and above. We wouldn't normally do anything like this, but I'm clicking on the calculate button. Now over here, you'll notice that there are a bunch of things that are over here as well. For the first time, I'm going to click on this thing that looks like a lightning bolt. And that shows you all the different methods for which I can write code. All right. Well, I'm going to write some code in my, and there's different ways of doing this. So I'm not even going to say that the way I'm doing it is the best way, but it's the way I'm going to do it. So for mouse enter, I'm going to come in here and in fact, I'll double click on it. All right. So this is the calculate button, mouse enter. All right. So what I'm going to say is btn calculate dot, let me do a back color, equals color dot green. Okay. So that's going to be green. And I'm going to put another one in here. And I'm going to use that. So right now, notice under click, I've got here, that's my click event. But also now under mouse enter, all right, under mouse enter, I've got that event that I just put in. Well, let's put another one under mouse leave. All right. And I'm going to put almost the same code in there, except well, I was going to say system, but I guess it doesn't like that. Well, let's see if we can figure out what the normal color of a button is. So there's the clear button. And we're going to look at back color. I'll use this one right here. Okay, we'll do it like this. See if we can. All right, so that's 224, 224, 224. All right, so in here, we now have, when we enter, we want it to be green, and when we leave, don't know if it'll take it like this or not. I'm going to try. Let's just make it gray. It'd take too long for me to figure out how to do this. All right. So let's see what happened, if anything. If I take my mouse down, put it in here, it's green. When I leave, it goes to gray. Green, gray, green, gray. I don't like that gray color, so I'm going to see if I can change it to something else. See if there's a light gray in there. Looks like there is. All right, so let's look at that. Green, gray, green, gray. Still is a little darker, it looks like, than that, but it's not too bad. Let's do the other two. What I'm showing you is definitely not the only way of doing this. I'm just telling you that right now. All right, I'm going to come back to here and click on clear. And this one, again, when we have a mouse enter, I'm going to just grab the one that I used before. And I don't want it to be green anymore. I want it to be colored dot. Is there an amber? No. I don't want it to be quite yellow, but how about light yellow? I don't know what that'll be, but we'll try that. All right, so that'll be light yellow. All right. And then we also want to put in one for our mouse leave. All right, and that'll be the same thing. Whoops, come on, there we go. That we did over here. All right, now there's a problem with what I put in. What I put in is wrong. So let's fix it. Well, look, it's not the calculate button anymore. It's the clear button. So clear here and clear here. So now let's see if the two buttons work. That should be green and gray, yellow and gray. All right. So we'll do the exit one and then we'll be done with this little exercise that's in here. Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to my exit button now and find my mouse enter. And again, I'm going to steal some code. I'll have to make sure I change it from clear to exit. And I don't want it to be light yellow anymore. I now want it to be red. And finally, we will come in and do exit on our mouse leave. And again, this was colored light gray. All right, so now I should have stuff in here for all of these. So that one, green and gray, yellow and gray, red and gray. Just so you see that. I'm responding to different events. All right, now I don't know if this is going to give me an error or not, but I want to keep that in there so you can see it, but I don't really want it to run. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try to comment it out. I'm going to see if it gives me an error if I comment that code out or it doesn't. It shouldn't. All right, but now since I comment, oops, it may. Yeah, it doesn't like that. All right, that's okay. I'll tell you what we'll do then. Let me uncomment. So let me go to all this code that we just commented out and I'll uncomment it. Well, I'll show you another way we can do this. All right, so it's uncommented so that the error should go away. But I'm just going to take the lines of code in here that resets the color. And I'm going to comment those lines out. We could leave them in. It's not hurting anything. Not hurting anything at all. All right. So let's see. It's not showing me any errors here. That's good. So file, save all, run it. And now it's doing nothing special with the mouse color. All right. But if you wanted to, of course, you could go in and you could put that in if you wanted to. All I'm trying to show you is there are many. You literally, if we've got 10 controls on your 12, the form is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We could put code in to respond to events, all right, on anything. Let me give you one more example. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to double click on the form and that opens up the form's load event. This is what happens when the form is first loaded into memory. So I'm just going to do a message box here, message box.show, and it's going to say, welcome to my invoice total GUI app. All right. And then we will give it that's going to be the text. We'll give it a title that just says, welcome. All right. And we will add to that an OK button. And we don't want it to be question. We'll just make it information. All right. The reason I'm showing you this is what should happen now is when the program starts to run, that message box should come up because the form is being loaded into memory. So file, save all. There it is. It's not even showing it yet, but welcome to my invoice total GUI app, and boom, there it is. Still works the same. All right, still can come in here and put in a number. It works. I can clear. I can exit. No, I can exit. Yes. If I bring it up again, boom, that comes up again. All right. Again, I'm trying to be complete and consistent with what's shown in the book here. So I showed you load. There's a closing and a closed event. So the difference between the two is if you do something in the form closing event, it hasn't closed yet. All right. If you do it in the closed event, it has already closed. All right. How to add or create an event handler to add, all right, um, a default event to a form. When you double click on a button, the button's click event comes up because that's the default option. When I clicked on the form, the load event came up because that's the load event is the default option for the form. And that's what they're talking about in here. Now, some of the stuff in here that we've looked at, we haven't talked about at all. What do I mean? Whoops, I don't know why I keep doing that, but I keep doing that. All right. So when you look in here, notice we've got object sender event args in a bunch of these things. What is that? All right. The sender basically is what's causing the event to happen. All right. Typically, to be honest with you, you're the sender or I'm the sender. Sometimes you have to use this, and we will look at this in a later chapter. Now, event args is one you don't use all that often, but again, we'll look at this in a later chapter. All right. But one place where you might use these event arguments would be as if you were doing something with the mouse. Now we've got mouse leave and the mouse enter. You've already seen those. But imagine you were creating a game and as you were moving around on the screen with your cursor, all right, you wanted it to be able to show where you were on the screen at any time. You might use those event arguments for something like that. There are uses for them. We will talk about them in a later chapter. All right. And the good news or bad news, depending on your point of view, is when you are working with this stuff, they're typically, if you want to do X, whatever X is in your program, normally there's at least a half dozen ways of doing X. Some of them will be very intuitive. In other words, oh, you want to do this, then do this. That's what I typically try to show when I'm teaching. Some will be much more obscure. Oh, that worked? Wow, you can do that? Sometimes I might show that, but a lot of times I won't. I don't know if that makes you a better programmer to know 8 ways of doing something, or if it makes you a better programmer to know 2 ways of doing something, but know those 2 ways very well. All right. It's the old concept of, do you want to be miles wide, but inches deep type of thing? Okay. All right. So the next thing that's in here, as it says, is how to use IntelliSense to enter the code for a form. Now, you already know what IntelliSense is. All right. And if you say I don't, yeah, you do. Because when I come in here and I started typing in here, let me grab this for right now. I'm just going to remove it and I'm going to put it back again. As soon as I put in message and I put a B, notice the message box comes in. So I come in here and I hit tab and it fills in the rest. When I put in a dot, it shows me what's available here. That's IntelliSense. So if I hit tab again, it brings me in the show. If I put in the parenthesis, it says, oh, this is all the stuff you can choose from. And I don't want to confuse you, but this method is overloaded 21 different ways that you can call it. All right. So all I'm trying to show you here is that almost anything that you do when you start to put in code and the like, the system will try to come in and use IntelliSense to help you. Now, you can usually go in under tools and options, and somewhere in here, I don't know where it is. You probably can turn that IntelliSense off. So if for some reason you're like, I want to learn this on my own, I don't want any help. I don't know why you do that. I think the IntelliSense is a great thing to have. But if you disagreed, you could go in and do that. In fact, let's look here. How to turn off Visual Studio IntelliSense. All right. I've never even looked at this before. How can I disable IntelliSense? And if you've never seen this site before, this is called stackoverflow.com. It's a terrific site. In a way, it's like Facebook for computer nerds. But be very leery about using it because you can go out there and you can ask questions. But if people think your question is stupid, they'll put right on there what a stupid question. All right. And I know that from personal experience. All right. But I'm looking in here and it says, how can you disable that? There. As it says, the function is a VS extension called Visual Studio IntelliCode. If you want to disable this, you could go to extensions installed and then disable it. I would never recommend doing that. But again, it's something that you could do. All right, let's continue on then. So again, a little bit on IntelliSense if you're interested. All right. Now it says the next figure here presents two event handlers for the invoice total form. It says the code that's shaded is the code that's generated when you double click calculate and exit. You must enter the rest of the code yourself. Now, if you look here, when we do our exit, we ask the user if they want to close. And if they don't, we keep them in there. Here they just say this dot close. So that's boom, it's closing. All right. This is their calculate. So we're going to change ours so it looks like theirs in a moment. And their exit is their clear is probably a little bit different than ours as well. All right, so I'm going to grab every bit of code that they have in there, and I'm going to type it in myself right now, just into here. This is way too big a font, so let me scale that down to about 24. That should work. All right, so I'm going to type everything that you see in here, not the yellow stuff, but everything in between there. I'm going to put this in right now. I could just copy it from the book as well. Now here they're saying if the subtotal is greater than or equal to $500. Now this is an if statement, which we have not talked about yet. But if we put in a number into that first text box that's greater than or equal to $500, then we want our discount percent to be 20. So it's 0.2 M. All right. Otherwise, if we put in a number that's between 250 and 499 or 499.99. So else if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 250 and the subtotal is less than 500, then our discount percent is 15. Otherwise, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 100 and it's less than 250, then the discount percent is 10%. And otherwise, there is no discount. So we're not even going to say anything. So let's just put in the rest of this. Again, all I'm doing is copying. The only thing I changed differently was I put, instead of 0.2M, I put 0.2M. Instead of 0.15M, I put 0.15M. And instead of 0.1M, I put 0.1M, just so it's a little clearer. All right. So now I'll say decimal discount AMT equals subtotal times the discount percent. The invoice total is equal to the subtotal minus the discount amount, and then we have to fill up our text boxes. So txt discount percent dot text equal discount percent dot to string. They did a percent like I did. Mine had 2 decimal places, which is the default. They used just 1. Totally fine. And finally, they've got txt total dot text equals the invoice total dot to string, again with currency. All right, I wasn't going to do this, but this is what I am going to do. All right, just so you can compare and contrast what I did with what the book has. All right, I'm going to do a file, save all on mine. All right, and then I'm going to right mouse click on here, do an add, new project. I'm again going to choose a Windows Forms app. All right, C# .NET Framework, but I'm going to call this one invoice total GUI 02. All right. All right, and I'm going to click create. Now I get a new one out here. It's weird. I don't know why it's got that around it, but it, okay. I created this with the wrong one. So let me try this again. All right, let me remove this. All right, go back, right mouse click, add, new project, Windows, form. All right. Should be Windows Forms app.NET Framework. It should be that one. I thought that's what I chose. Now, the problem is, even though I remove that, if I come in here and type in invoice total GUI 02, it may give me an error. All right, because it already created something by that name. So I'm just going to call that 2B, create. There it is. All right, that's what I want. All right, now I'm going to come in here and I'm immediately under view code. I'm going to put a comment in here. Going to be a big comment. And inside of here, I'm going to throw in all of that code that I had just copied in here. Okay, I'm going to throw in every bit of it. Don't worry about it. We'll come back to that in just a bit. All right. But what I want to do is I want to come in here into the design mode and look at my old one. I'm going to grab every bit of this. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I want to see if I can copy it over to here. I'll make this yellow so it's a different color. All right, I'm going to see if I can paste this in. There we go. Cool. I just don't have to do a lot of, redoing stuff in here then, that's all. So let me change the color of these because they're pretty ugly. And I'm going to make those a darker yellow. There we go. All right, now we've got our second form build. Now, this is called BTN Calculate. It's got the same names, but I'm going to change them because I want to use the same names the author used. I want to say that again. I want to use the same names that the author used in the author's code that we just put in here. All right. So let's go back and take a look. I mean, I could have just copied the authors. I'm sure that would have been a much simpler thing to do. And I didn't, and it's fine. So let's see. So we've got a BTN exit. I think we can use those names are just fine, I believe. The names of our buttons are okay. So BTN calculate, BTN exit, and BTN clear. They don't have a clear because they didn't make one like I did. So those should be okay in here. All right. So in other words, um, in here, my clear, all right, should be fine. All right. And I should have put this in before. I like to put stuff in order, but the calculate should be above the clear. So I'm going to move this down. All right. And then down at the bottom here will be my exit. Okay. Now, the exit I'm going to use, I'm going to steal that from my other code. Because all they did was they basically did a this dot close, which is silly. So I'm going to put that in here. Okay, so that's good. That should actually be working now. Now with these, I've got to change my names. Again, I'm trying to use the same names the author used in here. Whether that's a good thing, bad thing, doesn't really matter. But these are the ones I want to use. So I'm going to have to make some changes. Now it's going to give me an error. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it in just a minute. All right. So where was the one for the subtotal? TXT subtotal.txt. Okay. All right. So these are the names I want to use. This one, I think, is the one I did use. I'm not getting any error there, so that's good. I'm going to have to rename my discount percent to this, my discount amount to this, and I think the total is what I did use. All right, so I'm going to have to change these two to discount PCT and discount amount. Okay. Now, the problem with doing that, just so you know, when I go back to here and I change this, all right, I could end up having a problem. We'll see. We'll see if maybe I'll have no problem. But that is TXT subtotal. I'm changing the name of this one to TXT discount PCT or percent. I'm changing the name of this one to TXT discount AMT. Okay, so I changed those. I'm going to just leave my labels named the way they are. That's fine. So now in clear, I should be able to undo that, and make that nothing, and make that nothing. And finally set the focus to TXT subtotal dot focus. Okay, so right now with the changes that I've made, my exit button should work and my clear button should work. Let's see if that's the case. Now, if I run the program now, it's going to run my old program, the one that was cyan in color, not the yellow one. So I wanted to use this one. So I want it to use 2B. So I've got to right mouse click on it and choose set as startup project. Now it should run that one. Okay, I still have to go back in and center it, but that's no biggie. So if I put that in, clear works and exit works. Okay, those all work. That's good. Let's go back in and make a couple more changes here. I'm going to click on here and our accept button, we will set again to calculate. Our cancel button, we will set again to clear. Our start position, we will set again to center screen. All right. And we will come in again and do our tab order. And this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And another view tab order. All right. And if I run this now, it should be centered on the screen. Okay. So right now we got to do the calculate, but everything else in here works. And the good news is for the calculate, for that code, I've got it in here. I just have to copy this. All right, so right here. So I'm going to copy all of this code that you see right there. I'm going to cut it. Now I've got just my empty comment in there. So I'm going to remove the comment. And I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to paste it in. And I get no errors, which is great. So it should be working. All right. Everything should be working right now. All right. Let's see if it does. So again, if I put in a number that's more than 500, I should get 20% discount. Between 250 and 499.99, I should get a 15% discount. Between 100 and 249.99, I should get a 10% discount. Otherwise, I should get none. So let's try it. So if I put in a number greater than or equal to 500, this should be a right here should be a 20% discount. So this should be 20%, 200 and 800. And it is. Clear works. All right. If it's between 250, but if it's under 500, it should be a 15% discount. Let's try 300. So at 15%, that would be $45 and 255. And that works. All right. If it's 100 or more, but less than 250, so let's do 100. This should be 10%, 90. I'm sorry, 10%, 10 and 90. All right. And if it's under 100, there should be no discount. Right? It's all working. Now, let's take a few minutes And let's go back and talk about this code here because some of the stuff in here we haven't seen yet. All right. In mine, I did a decimal dot parse. They did a convert to decimal. It's basically doing the same thing. And just like you saw earlier, if I do come in here and leave this blank, the program will blow up. Same thing you saw before. All right. So my subtotal says take whatever we put into that first text box and convert it into a decimal. The percent we're setting to 0 by default. If the subtotal is greater than or equal to 500, then the percent is 20%. If the subtotal is greater than or equal to 50 and less than 500, meaning it's 490, it's between $250 and $499.99, then the discount percent is 15. Otherwise, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 100, but less than 250, meaning that it's less than or equal to 249.99, then it's 10%. Now we're doing the same thing here that I did. The discount amount is the subtotal times the discount percent. The invoice total is the subtotal minus the discount amount. Nothing different there. And then we are filling in the bottom 3 text boxes. Now that was quick. And we had not talked about an if statement before. Not sure exactly why the author decided to bring that up there, but they did. So I have now done the same thing as far as going over that. All right. All right, let's go back to the book then. And I just explained the code to you. The author does mention in here for some coding rules. These are just suggestions. Use spaces to separate words. This is a case-sensitive language. End each statement with a semicolon, and put blocks of code within curly braces. All right. And again, I did go in and I added the clear button. You did not have to do that. All right. So what we're going to get into in chapter 5, and I know we haven't even gone through 4 yet, but when I want you to hear this, when we go into chapter 5, we'll talk about debugging and how to handle errors. I think it's chapter 5. Let me quick look. Sure, I'm still here. No, it's not chapter 5. In fact, it's chapter 11, how to debug an app. All right. But what you'll learn there is there are basically 3 types of errors that you can make in a computer program. The first and the easiest to find, because the compiler finds them for you, are syntax errors. That's errors in the language. So if I go back, it doesn't matter which program I use, but if I use this one and I leave a semicolon off on the end and I go over here, all right, now it's giving me an error right here and it's saying semicolon expected. If I double click on the error, it even shows me where the error is. All right, so I can put that back in there. There's other ways that you can create syntax errors, spelling words wrong. All right. So for instance, this is not a great example, but it's the one I'll give you. Instead of focus, if I wrote focus like that, notice it comes up right away and it says text box does not contain a definition for focus with 2 C's. All right. You can kind of look at it this way. If you remember back when you were a little kid and you had your summer vacation. So you're leaving first grade and you're going into second grade. And you come to class the first day of second grade and your teacher says, for tomorrow you are to write a 1-page paper on what you did during your summer vacation. And you turn it in and it's one page, and the whole thing is one humongous sentence that goes over 30 lines. Well, your teacher probably wouldn't like that because basically, like look at your book. Look at this book here. What is this book? It's a series of pages. What are these pages? They're a series of paragraphs. What are these paragraphs? They're a series of sentences. What are these sentences? They're a series of words. What are these words? They're a series of letters, etc. But you are expected to write in a certain way. In the same way, you are expected to code in a certain way. And if you go against the syntax, you'll get a syntax error. Now, there's two other types of errors. Sometimes you don't get an error until you run the program. If you remember from before, when we ran our program, right now it's saying there's no errors. This is our error window. There's no errors. But if I come in here and I put nothing in there, if I put something like this, hello, it's going to try to take and convert that into a number, which it can't do. That's a runtime error. It wasn't discovered until I'm running the program. All right. So that's a runtime error. Now, that's the second kind. Okay. What if I did this? Let's just say I fat fingered here. Okay. I wasn't watching when I was typing and I accidentally did this. So this should say 0.1 M and it says 0.71 M. Now I'm testing my program and I put in $100 and I'm sure this should be 10%, $10.90. But I put it in, wait a minute, 71%, $71, $29, what's going on here? So I go back in here and I look, oh, I fat fingered. That's a logic error. The program still runs, but unless you know what your correct results should be, you may or may not even know that it's technically, at least, giving you incorrect results because of what you put in. Those are the hardest ones to find. All right. So Visual Studio checks the syntax of your C# code as you enter it. If a syntax error or build error is detected, it's highlighted with a wavy underline. If you get a wavy red underline, it's an error. If you get a wavy green underline, it's a warning. All right. If the error list window is open, all errors are shown in that window. If it's not open, you can click View and select Error List. So you can come up here and click on View. Somewhere in here, it should say Error List. There it is, a little more than halfway or so down. To display a list of potential fixes, it says you can click the Show Potential Fixes link if it's there. Visual Syntax doesn't show some syntax errors until the project is fully built. All right, some additional coding skills. How to code with a readable style. And this is a great one because when you look here, all right, this is how we just wrote that section in there in our calculate button. But just so you know, we could have written it just like this. Just like that. Now, you may be aware of this. You may not be aware of this. But the first thing that the compiler does when it goes in and starts to compile your code is internally, it converts this into this. In other words, it removes any extraneous white space. So any white space that gets put into a program gets put in there for your benefit, not for the benefit, say this again, not for the benefit of the computer, for the benefit of the reader. So what you should do to make it easier for you to read and understand, they give you some coding recommendations here on the bottom of page 71. Use indentation and extra spaces to align statements and blocks of code so they reflect the structure of an app. Use spaces to separate words, operators, etc. Use blank lines as delimiters for related and non-related statements. As you enter code, Visual Studio automatically adjusts its formatting by default, so it does a bunch of stuff for you. Comments we've talked about already. There's two types. This is a multi-line comment. It starts with a slash star. It ends with a star slash. This is a single line comment. It's two forward slashes and everything there from there to the right, so to the end of the line, is automatically set up or put in there as a single line comment. And that's pretty much what they say in here. Comments provide for your program what is known as internal documentation. My litmus test, so to speak, as to whether or not comments are necessary is if you have to ask, geez, does this need a comment? It probably does. All right. Okay. How to work with the text editor toolbar as we're on page 74. So figure 310 shows how to work with that toolbar that's up here. Some of this I've shown you, such as how to comment or uncomment a big section of text. All right, so I already showed you that option that was in there. There's other things too that just to tell you about this. So if I come in here and I decide this is getting really hard to read. It's not a long program. It's 69 lines. But you know what? I've already worked with my clear button. It works. So if I click on this minus sign, it contracts this into one line. I can do the same thing here. And now notice it's not showing as many lines of code. It's a little easier to read. I don't need to do it here, or I could. So now I can just kind of read and look at everything. I'll do it here. Oh, don't want to do it there. I'll do it here. No, don't want to do it there. But do it here. There we go. So now if you look, I can see almost all my code for my calculate event on the same screen. In fact, if I make this smaller, probably can. So there it is. So you can use that to just make your life a little easier. Not everybody agrees that's the case. All right, and then you can click on the plus sign to change it back to a minus sign. And bring all that back again. I mentioned this to you yesterday. These things that are gray in here are not being used, so we can remove those if we, whoops, if we want to. Okay, all right. So I just showed you both of those. I'm not going to go over code snippets. Visual Basic provides code snippets. They're a way that Visual Basic will write some code for you. First of all, I think they're a little confusing. Second of all, I think you should be writing your own code. If you disagree with that, you can read this on page 76 and look at the example on page 77, and it'll write some stuff for you. All right. I've never felt the need to do that. Okay. Sometimes when you write code, you write one routine. Okay. And that routine gets really, really, really long. And you think, you know what, it would be better to take that routine and break it up into smaller routines. Okay. That's what's known as refactoring. Now, in a real situation, I'm going to show you something that people don't do this. I'm saying again, people don't do this. But imagine I told you to write a program. And in that program, I told you to enter these pieces of information. First name, middle initial, last name, address, city, state, zip code, phone number, email address. All right, we'll leave it there. That's 9 pieces of information. That's enough. All right. Most people would naturally write one routine that asked for all, it should be lowercase, but it's okay, that asked for all of this information. In other words, they wouldn't write 9 different routines. But when you write a routine, ideally, a routine is only supposed to do one thing. So we could have one routine that was called input first name, then another called input middle initial, then another called input last name, etc. That's really the way you are encouraged to write. All right. And what does this have to do with refactoring? Well, if you decided you wanted to turn this into 9 different routines, you could refactor it. Now, Visual Studio will try to do some refactoring of code for you. So the author says here, as you work on the code for an app, you will often find that you want to revise your code. For instance, you might want to change a name throughout it or do something else. So I gave you one way of refactoring. The author's giving you another one. All right. And they're showing how you can go in here and in this case, rename a piece of code that you didn't like. In fact, I think they're renaming in here discount PCT to discount percent. All right. There's a lot of other ways you can do it. You can do it basically by just coming in there and doing a search and replace just as well as this, which I'd rather do. I think it's easier than what they show there. All right. How to run, test, and debug a project. First of all, let's see exactly where we are here. All right, we're on 80, so we've got about 10 pages to go. Totally fine. As you enter the code for a project and correct the syntax errors, you can run the project. You know how to do this. All right. There is more than one way to run a project. So when I come in here, I've always shown you, I always try to do a file, save all first, and then I click up here. Boom, project's running. Are there other ways to run the project? The answer is yes. We can go to build solution. We can go to debug, start debugging, and they will pretty much do the same thing. All right. They're not exactly, the build solution isn't exactly the same. So the author says here to run a plot project, click the start button or do a debug, start debugging. All right. When the project is run with debugging, it displays a tools window down on the bottom by default. If there aren't any errors, it'll let you know. If it finds errors, it'll bring up an error list. The project won't run. Okay. And going along with that, just so you know, I'm going to put an error in here on purpose. Now there's an error in here because I left off that semicolon. When I run this, it says there were errors. Should you continue with the last successful build? I have never in my life ever remembered typing in yes there. I just type a no in. Then I go back and fix it, try to fix it, save it, and run it again. Okay. What I'm showing you, at least with some of this stuff, is how I do things. And by no means am I trying to suggest, hey, because I do something a certain way, you should do it that way. That would be foolhardy at best on my part. All right. Says you're on testing a project. When you test it, you want to make sure that it works correctly. Okay. They talk about exceptions. I've already shown you those. What we will get to when we get to chapter 11 is, let's suppose that right here, before I did this application.exit, I'm going to come out and I'm going to take my mouse, and in this gray area you see here, it's called the gutter area. For line 57, I'm going to click there. That just created what's called a break point in my code. Watch what happens. I click exit and I say, for example, yes. All right. I'm right here. It stopped right here. All right. But I can come back in. The program is still running, even though I told it to stop running. All right. And I can go back and look at certain things if I need to. That we'll get into that in chapter 11. Click on it again, and the breakpoint goes away. When you test a program, the idea behind testing a program, believe it or not, the idea is you want to break your program. Better you than someone else. So when you are testing a program, you're trying to find any bugs that are in the program. If you've never heard the story, I don't know if this is true or if it's folklore, but one of the more famous computer programmers back in, I would guess, probably the 50s, was a little woman. She was a rear admiral in the Navy named Grace Hopper. This is back in the days when computers had big vacuum tubes and you programmed in machine language, which were zeros and ones. Well, one day, Ms. Hopper was working on her program and she ran it, and it was giving wrong results and she couldn't figure out why. She checked it and the code was correct. She ran it again, still had incorrect results. So she opened the back of the computer up to look and see if there was a problem with the machine. And lo and behold, stuck into some of the hardware in the back of the computer was a dead moth. That was the first computer bug. That's not meant to be an error, or a joke, rather. It was called a bug, and the process of removing errors in a computer then became known as debugging. So when you test, you attempt to find bugs so you can debug. You test with both valid data and invalid data to make sure that your program handles it. Now, with what we've done so far, we're 2 days in to the course. So with what we've done so far, we are expecting that basically everything that we are putting in is valid. And right now, if we put in invalid data, the computer just breaks. So what I want you to understand, all right, is three things. First of all, if you look right now at the screen, I am in what's called design mode, which means I can make any changes to anything in here, or I can go into the code and make changes to anything in there. If I come in and let's just take, I'm going to purposely put a semicolon or a breakpoint right there. All right. And I'm going to run the program, and I'm going to put in here $456. Boom, it works. I click clear and the program stopped. Now I'm in debug mode. All right, so I was in design mode. Now I'm in debug mode. All right. If I'm going to stop this and I'm going to just tell it to finish running the program. All right. And I'm done. But if I run it again and I leave nothing in here and I click, now technically I'm kind of in purgatory because the program's running, but it has an error in it that's keeping it from doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I showed you design mode. I showed you debug mode. This is more a suspend type of mode. That might not be what they call it in the book. I don't remember what they call it in there. All right. So as it says here, when an app encounters a runtime error, here's an idea. You need to fix that error. Okay. This is commonly referred to as debugging, and the error is the bug. When an app encounters a runtime error, that's the mode I meant to say. You go into what's called break mode. So when we had that error, we were in break mode, kind of a purgatory, like I mentioned. You will learn more about debugging in chapter 11. Now that's it for this chapter. Again, we're just starting here. We've gone through now chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. All right, so we've gone through these first 3 chapters. All right, and spent about 2 hours and 15 minutes today. Haven't taken a break yet. I spent 5 hours and 6 minutes yesterday, so we're 7 hours into the class. So if not everything makes sense, that really is to be expected. All right, let's do 2 more things, and then I'm going to take a short little break. The first thing that I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go back into here, and now I've made changes. So if I type in get status again, it's got a bunch of stuff that's red. That's all the second one when I made the thing from the author. So let's do another git commit. I'm sorry, let's do another git add dot. Now let's do another git status. And all those things that were red should now be green, and they are. Now let's do a git add, a git commit -m author's version of invoice total app 516, oops, 5/16 2023. All right, got all that. And now let's see if we can push this back up to GitHub. So git push -u origin master. Hit enter. It's going to spin again, and boom, it's done. So let's go back into GitHub and let's refresh. And now notice in here, it says author's version, but both of them are in here. Both versions are there. My version and the author's version. If I go to invoice total and start looking, there they are. Now there's 2 that's in here. That's the one I made, and I tried to remove it. So there's nothing in that one. But in GUI 01, there is that is the one that I made, and 02B is the one the author made. Let's do one thing. I was going to take a break now, but before we do, let's do one thing. All right, I'm going to clear this. I'll leave this open for now. And let's build this thing that we've been working on one more time, but let's build it as a console app. All right, so I'm going to right mouse click on here, add, new project, and I'm going to put in here console app.net. There it is, consoleapp.net. Boom. This one I'm going to come in and call invoice console. Oops, invoice total console. Invoice, try that again. Invoice total console 01. Okay. And I'm going to click create. And there that is. Now, again, I'm going to come in just like we did before. And I'm going to put in a big comment. Now I'm going to use my version. Don't have to. I could use the authors, but I'm going to use my version. In fact, let's use the authors. Just maybe that's a little better thing to do. All right. So here's the author's version. Okay. And now when we look in here, this is what we just looked at. We don't need an exit anymore. So we don't need that. We don't need a clear anymore. But we're going to grab all of this code that's in here. Every bit of it. Now, if we brought that code in and tried to run it, we get a lot of errors. I don't want to get a lot of errors. So let me keep this. And now I'm going to close this. And I'm going to close this. Okay. And now I'm going to go and add all this code back. Now, like I said, if we ran it, we get nothing but errors. So we've got 4 pieces of data, if you remember. So what do we have in here? We've got a decimal that is a subtotal. We've got another decimal that is a discount percent. We've got another decimal, which is a discount amount. And we've got another decimal that's a total. Okay, so we've got all those. So I'm going to come in here just like we've done before. In fact, I'm going to get rid of all these. And I'm going to replace it with just one using static system.console. Just that one. All right, now I'm going to come in here and say, write, please enter a subtotal. Now. All right, so that'll go right there. So I'm going to say subtotal equal, what did they have before? It was a convert dot to decimal console dot readline. All right, so that'll be my first one. Then I'm going to say write we don't even need to do that percent. We're going to do it like the way the author did it. So we've got a subtotal. Now what can we say here? So we did the convert to decimal. And I'm going to say that subtotal is equal to 0. We've already created that, so we shouldn't need that line. So if the subtotal was greater than or equal to 500, the discount percent is 20. Otherwise, 15, otherwise 10. Those are all done. All right. So now we can say the discount amount is equal to the subtotal times the discount percent. Here, I'll just set this equal to 0. That should get rid of that error. It did. All right. And our invoice total, which I just call total here, so we'll make that invoice total. That invoice total is now equal to subtotal times discount percent. Okay, what doesn't it like here? This does not exist in the current context because I spelled it wrong. All right. And then all we have left here is to print them out. So let's do a clear. And we're going to do this. We're going to say write line subtotal plus subtotal dot toString, and we will make that currency. All right. Discount percent Again, this might not be lined up right, but we'll work on that later. We want the discount percent, but we want that to be a percentage, and that was with 1 decimal. That's the way the author did it. The discount amount, try that without any, so to string, and that'll be a currency. And what's left? The total. All right. The last thing I have to do is my read line to make this thing stop so it doesn't fly off the screen. And yeah, that looks fine. So file, save all, and I'm going to run this. Whoop, got to set my default project or my startup project. So that's got to be set to this console. So set as startup project. So let's do that again. All right, please enter a subtotal now. 500. Okay, the discount percent, the discount amount, and the total. 500 would be 20%. 500 times 20 is 100. 500 minus 100 is 400. All right. So I need one more here, there, and there. Let's try that. Which ones were they? Second, third, and fourth. Second, third, and fourth. Again, this is not by any means a perfect looking interface, but it's not too shabby either. All right, enter a subtotal now, 500. There we go. So with 500, it's 20%. All right, then let's try it with 300 and see if we get a 15%. And we did. Let's try it with 100 and see if we get a 10%. And we do. And let's try it with $75 and see if we get 0%. So everything is working. We have now created this, and we have now created this as a console app. So let me come in again. I'll do another git. Notice if I do another git status, I get errors. All right, so I'll do a git add dot and clear. And now I'll do another git status. Now everything should be green. I'll do another git commit -m and just say added invoice total console app. And I will do another git push. All right. So now if you go back into GitHub and I do this again, you'll now notice I've got the console, I've got the GUI 1 and the GUI 2. All right, so they're all in there. Unfortunately, when you do this, it just shows the most common or the most current comment. Okay, but it's all in there. So if that'll help you at all to take a look at that, fantastic. All right. So what do I want to do then for the rest of the class? Well, if you remember, because we're ahead. So let's see what we said we were going to do today. All right, today we will first review what we did Monday, taking any questions. There's no one here live, so I don't have any questions. We've covered chapter 2 and we've covered chapter 3. All right, so let's go on. Tomorrow I'm going to give you the pretest. I'm not doing that now, but let's take a look at the written tests for chapters 1 to 3. And then we will go over the homework for, let's see, not there. There we go. This is what we have for our first homework, is these two. So we'll do these two together. All right. So give me a couple minutes to get my stuff together because I didn't think we'd get this far today. All right. So tomorrow, what we'll do is at the beginning of class, I'm saying this again, tomorrow at the beginning of class, all right, I will give you the pretest. Okay. And I will give you 1.5 hours to work on it. After the pretest, we will, after that 1.5 hours, I will do the pretest for you from scratch. That should prepare you for our first hands-on test, which will be Thursday. But in order to try and see at least if we can get a little bit ahead, let's take a look. Let me bring this back up. And this, and this. Jump back here. The next two chapters that we're going to have after this, the ones we'll go over next week, chapters 4 and 5. Let's see if tomorrow, if there's time, we can maybe delve into those. And if nothing else, all right, I can give you some practice programs. There will be nothing on your first hands-on test, nothing from chapter 4 or chapter 5. You will take another hands-on test next week. That will be on any material from 1 through 5. So again, the idea is then this would be next week, 4 and 5, then 6 and 7 the next week, 8 and 9 the next week, and 10 and 11 the following week. If we can get a little bit ahead, what that'll mean is, because the book gets a lot harder in the second half. This is all hard stuff. This is not hard, but this is hard stuff. And some of the stuff in here is hard. So the more time we have to work on hard stuff, the better off we're going to be. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've got to answer an email, and it is 10:34, but literally I'm going to take about 5 minutes. All right. And when I come back after that 5 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the hands-on tests for chapters 1, 2, and 3. I may even have them here. I don't know. Here's one. Let's see. Yep, there's the hands-on test for 1. And here's 2. And here's 3. All right, so they're all there. So we will go through all of those. When we get done, I will then jump back into here. And In these exercises, 2.1 is design a simple form. So we will design that. I will follow their instructions to the letter, names and everything else, except I will give my labels names. All right. And then we'll do 3.1, which is code this. Okay. And that'll be it for today. If we get done with that all by 12 noon, and we're done by noon today. All right. I don't want to go on too far and too fast. All right. Because the last thing in the world I want to do is turn any of you off to this stuff. You can all do it. Some of you, it may take longer than others, but I really and truly believe you can all do it. So let me answer my email. So I am going to come in here, and in here, I'm going to stop sharing. So you probably can't see anything right now. And I will just put a different share up. I will put up a window, and we'll put up the chapter 1 test. All right, so I will be back. It is 10:36. I'll try to be back absolutely no later than 10:45. Take 9 minutes right here. If I do it faster, you'll know when I know. All right. So I am going to start back up again and let's go over. I'm not going to save this. I do expect you, any work we do as a class, be they written tests, labs, homeworks, anything that we do as a class, I'm expecting you to do and still turn in, with the exception of you do not have to turn in pretests. You can. I don't grade them. You don't have to. But I'm going to go over the written tests right now, but I'm not saving this. It won't be in a repo or anything else. Then I'm going to go over the problems for your first homework. But again, I'm not going to save them. All right, so let's go over first chapter 1 written test. Number 1, a desktop application runs. Well, the answer is C, on the user's computer. Number 2, which of the following is not a platform you can use to develop Windows desktop applications? The answer is D, ASP.NET Core MVC. Number 3, which of the following is not a .NET programming language? The answer is B, JavaScript. Number 4, which of the following statements is true? The answer is B, .NET Core is newer than the .NET framework and is cross-platform, meaning you can run it on a Mac, or Apple machine, on a Windows machine, on a Linux machine, etc. Number 5, the primary components of .NET rather, are its class libraries and its D, Common Language Runtime, also known as CLR. Number 6, what is the purpose of the .NET class libraries? The answer is A. They provide pre-written code that can be used by .NET applications. Number 7, what is the purpose of the Common Language Runtime? The answer for number 7 is B. It manages the execution of .NET applications. Number 8, before a C# application can be run, it must be compiled into a language called B, Microsoft Intermediate Language, MISL, MSIL. There is no one here that just says intermediate language, but MISL or Microsoft Intermediate Language is also known as just intermediate language. Number 9, an assembly is, the answer is B, an executable file that includes the Microsoft Intermediate Language or just intermediate language. Number 10, a solution is C, a container that holds projects. Number 11, which of the following is not a way to open an existing project in Visual Studio? The answer is C, File, Recent Files submenu. Number 12, which of the following is a way to open a form in the Form Designer window? The answer is B, find the form in the Solution Explorer and double-click on it. Number 13, which of the following is a way to open the code editor window for a form? The answer is C, find the form in the Solution Explorer, right-click on it, and choose View Code. Number 14, to write the C# code for a form, you use a Visual Studio window called D, the code editor. Number 15, to work with the files in a solution, you use a Visual Studio window called C, the Solution Explorer. Number 16, A window that appears at the edge of the Visual Studio IDE is known as a docked window. Number 17. Within Visual Studio, which window can you use to change the version of .NET that a project is targeting? The answer is D, the Project Properties window. Number 18. To run a Windows Forms project, B, click the Start button. Number 19. When you run a Windows Forms project, C, the project is first built and then it is run. Number 20, when you run a Windows Forms project, Visual Studio displays the project's first A form. All right, I'm not going to repeat any of those. If you need them repeated, go back and view the tape once again. So that is chapter 1. For next, then, for chapter 2. All right, so for chapter 2. Give me a second here. All right, so number 1, to customize the way Visual Studio works, what command do you select from the Tools window? The answer is A, the Options command. Number 2, in Visual Studio, what command of the Tools menu can you choose to change the development settings that affect the way menus and toolbars work? I showed you an example of that. That was under C, Import and Export Settings. Number 3, to create a new Visual Studio project, what do you select from the New Project dialog box to specify the type of project you want to create? The answer is C, a template. Number 4, which control do you use to allow the user to enter some text? The answer is B, a text box. Number 5, which property of a text box lets you prevent the user from entering data into a control? The answer is A, the read-only property. Number 6, what is the name of the Visual Studio window that contains controls that you can drag onto a form? And the answer is B, the toolbox. Number 7, 2 properties that are common to both forms and controls are C, the name property and the text property. Number 8, which key can a user press to activate a button that's set by the cancel button on the form? The answer is A, the escape key. Number 9, which property of a control determines whether the property will be enabled or disabled? As you might guess, it's A, the enabled property. Number 10, which property of a control sets the alignment for the text displayed on the control? It is C, the text align property. Number 11, what form property do you use to activate a button control when the user presses the enter key? The answer is C, the accept button property. Number 12, the tab order determines the order in which C, the controls on the form receive the focus when the user presses the tab key. Number 13, to prevent a control from receiving the focus when the user presses the tab key, which of the control's properties do you set to false? The answer is B, the tab stop property. Number 14, What property of a form sets the title that's displayed in the form's title bar? The answer is C, the text property. Number 15. To create an access key that will move the focus to a text box, you B, set the access key in the text property of the label immediately before the text box. Number 16. Access keys let the user activate a control by A, pressing Alt plus another key. Number 17. What would you set the text property of a label to if you want the label to appear as shown below with the letter N as the access key? And the answer is B. You notice that the ampersand is before the letter N. Number 18. To change the file name for a form or a solution, you must use B, the Solution Explorer. Number 19. The text property of a control determines D, the text that's displayed in the control. Number 20. When you run a form after you've used the form designer to design, but haven't added any code to it yet, B, the buttons don't cause anything to happen, but otherwise the form works. Number 21. To select two or more controls, which key can you hold down when you click the controls? The answer is B, the control key. Number 22. When you align or size a group of selected controls, the changes are made relative to the D, primary, parent, whatever you want to call it, control. Again, I'm not going to repeat those. Finally, the last one we'll go over quickly here will be chapter 3. All right. All right. Hold on a sec. There we go. All right. So chapter 3, number 1. An object is D, an instance of a class. A class is, for number 2, A, the code that defines the characteristics of the object. Number 3, instantiation is the process of A, creating an object from a class. Number 4, an operation that an object can perform is called B, a method. Number 5, a characteristic of an object and its associated data is called a property. Number 6, which of the following is not defined by a class? The answer is C, notices. Number 7, to refer to a property of an object in your C# code, you code the C, object name followed by a period, or also known as a dot, and the property name. Number 8, what does the following code do? The answer is B, calls the focus method of the TXT monthly investment control. Number 9, to say that a C# application is event-driven means that it responds to B, user events and other types of events. Number 10, What is the term for a method that responds to events? D, event handler. Number 11, what event does Visual Studio generate code for when you double click button in the form designer? The answer to 11 is A, it's the click event. Number 12, what is the name of the method generated if you double click a button or BTN process in the form designer? The answer is if you double click the button, it doesn't bring up the double click property, it brings up B, the click property. Number 13, blocks of code are enclosed within A, braces, also known as curly braces. Number 14, C# statements must end with a semicolon. Number 15, a syntax error is identified in C, the code editor window and the error list window. Number 16, which of the following is not a recommended way to improve the readability of your C# code? Which is not? The answer is B, use all capital letters for variable names. Number 17, which of the following is a valid comment? The answer is D. Number 18, which of the following statements is true? The answer is C. Comments can be inaccurate or out of date. So if the code changes and you don't change the comments that go along with the code. Number 19, to insert the starting code for an if statement into the code for a form, you can use C, a code snippet. We didn't really go over those, sorry. Number 20, to change the name of all occurrences of a variable after you change the first occurrence, you can use B, refactoring. Number 21, when an application encounters a problem that prevents it from being executed, B, a runtime error occurs. Number 22, when you test an application, your goal is A, to find runtime errors. You don't have to worry about finding syntax errors. The compiler finds those for you. All right, number 22. Oh wait, I guess maybe I skipped 21. No, I think I did that. 21 was B, 22 is A. 23, when you debug an application, your goal is B, to fix the runtime errors you found when you were testing. Number 24, what is another name for a runtime error? The answer is B, exception. 25, Microsoft's official online documentation. C is a website that you can navigate like any other website. Number 26, which of the following choices adds a comment that says currency format to the end of the line of code? The answer is D. Remember the 2 forward slashes. Number 27, which of the following statements calls the close method? The answer is A, this dot close. Finally, number 28, a data type B displays the value of a variable or property. So that is now everything. Okay. That is everything for written tests 1, 2, and 3. You are still supposed to do these written tests. Now, We have extra exercises and we have projects. We're not going to go into the projects until we get into section 2 of the book. So there are no projects. So there are no labs. There are no labs for the first set of assignments that's due this Sunday. So let's move over to here. So these extra exercises are designed to give you experience with all of the critical Visual Studio and C# skills, as some will take longer than others, possibly longer than an hour to complete. In general, the more exercises you do, the more time you spend on them, the better you're going to be. All right, so let's jump into the guidelines. Many of these have a start file. All right, I'm not even going to use the start file. I'm going to do it completely from scratch. Do the exercise steps in sequence. If you're doing an exercise in class with a time limit, doesn't matter here. Feel free to copy and paste code from the book apps. Use your book as a guide to coding. All right, so let's jump into here. You see how simple this interface is. All right, so again, shouldn't even have to grab this. So what I am going to do, what you would want to do then, and I'm not saving this for you, but you would want to remember what I told you before. All right, if you say, I don't know what you're talking about, I said that I said this to you yesterday, all right, and that is if you don't even have to go out to GitHub yet, but I'm going to, all right, because I'm grabbing my own GitHub repo here. So something in here that says, I think it was student, but I don't remember. That's it. So the first thing you should do, if you have not already done this, then the first thing that you should do is put this in your address bar. https://github.com/jpscottrankin/ no, that isn't it. I'm sorry. It's close, but that ain't it. This is the one we want right here. That's it. Let me try it again. So step 1, put this into your address bar. https://github.com/jpscottrankin/AWD1100 summer 2023/students. Okay, so I'm going to put that into my status bar right there. So I'm John Doe here, so I'm putting that in there and I hit enter. This is what comes up. Number 2, click the green code button. Number 3, scroll down and choose download zip. Number 4, go to your downloads folder. That's going to differ. It can differ, but go to your downloads folder. You should be able to find that. In that downloads folder, you should have a file with this name. I've already done it, so I've got a 1 in there. You won't have that. All right, so go to your downloads folder. Yes, I want to rename it. So, oh, it's okay. It's not going to let me. That's okay. Well, all right. And find this file. Okay. Next, rename this file to the following. AWD summer 2023, get rid of this. So I'm going to pretend for a minute my name is John Doe. All right, so John Doe. If your name is Mike King, John Doe will become Mike King. If your name is Mary Clark, your name will be Mary Clark, etc. All right, next, step 6, unzip the folder. All right, so again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to rename mine instead of students master, etc. I'm going to rename it John Doe, like that. John Doe. Okay, so it's now been renamed. Then I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose extract all. You decide where you want to put it. I'm going to leave it right here in my downloads folder. All right, and click extract, and it'll take a minute or so, but you'll have a file in there then that's called, I'm sorry, you'll have a folder in there that is called AWD1100 hyphen summer 2020. If you get this message that says this is too long, click the box that says do this for all items and then click skip. That's just some system file. Don't worry about it. Again, this can take up to 1, 2, or 3 minutes, depending on the speed of your connection. Okay. So I now have this AWD Summer 2023 John Doe. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it by clicking on it and clicking on it and just dragging it to the desktop. All right. So I'm going to actually, I'll right mouse click on it and I'll move it to the desktop. And it says, what do you want to do? I would suggest say copy here, just in case you screw it up. So what a copy here. All right. Now, so we've gone through these steps. Unzip the folder. I'm going to say to your desktop. Now you're ready to go. So those are the steps. I can save this file and put it out there. And I'll put in here, replace John Doe with your name. Okay. All right. Now next, I'm over here. And someplace in here, I've got a thing that's got John Doe on it. I don't know where it is. I'll find it though. There it is with John Doe on it right there. All right, there it is. If I open this up, it has a thing in there that says extra exercises. You can leave it called extra exercises if you want, but I'm going to rename this homework. And I'm going to go to the projects and I'm going to rename that lab. You don't do that, you can do that. So if I open this up and I look under these starts, there is a thing for chapter 2, and there's a README file in here. There is no starting point for this exercise because it has you start a new application from scratch. Okay. And if I look on chapter 3, they've got something in here. Well, I'm not even using that. That's kind of cheating. So I'm not even going to use that. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to open up my labs folder. I'm sorry, my homework folder. And I'm just going to add a new folder in here, right there. Now, if I do open this, I've got, I don't know if that's going to help or hurt. So I'm just going to put it right in here. So I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to add a new folder in here that says chapters 2-3 homework. All right. That's where I'm going to create this in just a minute. Chapters 2-3 homework. All right. So I'm going to open up a new instance of Visual Studio. Let me close this one that was open. All right. And I'm going to open myself up a new version or a new Visual Studio. And I'm going to choose create a new project. Now this project was called what? We've got design a simple form and code and test the calculate letter grade form. So I'm just going to call mine calculate letter grade. You can call it whatever you want, as long as I can figure out what it is. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in Windows form and look around. There's my Windows Forms app.net. Okay, click next. I'm going to give it, you know what? I'm going to give it my name. So you can put your name here. So I'll put Jeff Scott. Calculate letter grade. That'll be the name. In fact, let's not even do that. That will make that the name of the solution. All right, so Jeff Scott, calculate letter grade, and we'll name the project calculate letter grade. In fact, let's even do this another way. Let's make this as simple for you as possible. All right. So let me just go back, and for now I'm gonna go back to here. Let's just make a single folder under homework. Okay, under homework that we call, I don't know, completed homework. So under my homework folder, I made a folder called completed homework. All right. Now in Visual Studio here, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here just like we just did. Windows Forms app, C# next. Well, now I want to make sure that I use that folder. So I'm going to my desktop, homework, completed homework. So that's the right folder now. Okay, I'm putting it in my completed folder, homework. All right, so there it is. If I go to the end here, there's completed homework. All right, I'm going to call this project that I'm putting in here chapters 2-3 homework. And I'm going to call the solution name completed homework, just like that. All right, and click create. So now in here, I've got a solution called completed homework, and I have a project called chapters 2 and 3. Looks like I wrote 203. It doesn't matter. Homework. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make this one right here. Okay. you can see that it's a fairly simple interface. Just to make sure I don't screw it up, I'm going to do what I usually do. So there it is. I'm going to change the name of the form to FRM calculate letter grade. I'm going to change the text to calculate letter grade. I am going to make two labels, one that says number grade colon, one that says letter grade colon. This will be LBL number grade, LBL letter grade, TXT number grade, TXT letter grade. This one here, this one will be a read-only field. I'm going to have a calculate and an exit, and I'm going to put a clear button between them. When I click clear, this will clear, and I'll put the focus there. I'd like you to do the same thing, please. All right. So coming in here then, again, simple interface. You don't have to change the color like I do. You can. You by no means do you have to. All right. So I'm going to first add my 3 buttons. There is one. So that will be calculate. That will be clear. And that will be exit. Okay, looks pretty much like it's pretty centered, etc. Then we will have 2 labels. And again, as I do things, I like to make my labels a shade or 2 darker. All right. Then I'm going to go to that label and I'm going to set the auto size to false. So there will be letter grade and number grade. And then I need 2 text boxes. And that will be for the letter grade and for the number grade. All right, looks like I'm ready to basically lock my interface after I change the size here. So I'm going to make these 24 bold Arial. You've seen me do this before. There we go. All right, now I can lock my interface into place. So now it's locked. Looks okay to me. It's not perfect. It looks just fine. So on this form, I'm going to change the name of the form by right mouse clicking up here in the Solution Explorer on the form, choosing rename and making it FRM calculate letter grade. Hit enter. Yes, I want to change it all over. So now that's changed. All of these should now be changed. All right. Next, I want this where it says form 1 on the text. I want that to change. And we're going to type in here calculate letter grade. There that is. All right, so this will say number grade. So it will be LBL number grade. And again, it will say number grade colon with a space between the words number and grade. And I'll have to make that a little wider. That's fine. I'll do it in a second. This one will be letter grade. Okay. And let's make this a little bit wider. I don't like them touching. That's just a weird fetish or weird way that I am. Looks good. All right, so this is done. Let me make sure that the interface is locked again. All right, so number grade, letter grade. I did not change the name of that one, so let's change the name to LBL letter grade. This will become TXT letter grade. This will be TXT number grade. All right, and these are our buttons. So this will be BTN calculate. This will be BTN clear. And this will be BTN exit. And text on there too. So that should be calculate. This should be clear. And this should be exit. And I have to remember to send you that code out there today with the exit. So this is where I'll put in my calculate code. This is where I'll put in my clear code. This is where I'll put in my exit code. All right. Okay. First, let me grab that actual exit code. That's that. Now I can close this. So in my exit, that handled that. Now in my clear, there's just 3 lines, txt number grade dot text equals double quote txt letter grade dot text equals double quote and txt number grade dot focus. Those should both be done now. So I'm going to save this. It's not centered or anything yet, but let's see if those two work. All right, so here, I'll just throw something in here and in there. Calculate does nothing. Clear, that all works. Exit, no. Exit, yes. Okay, I'm already 2/3 done with what I'm supposed to be doing. All right, let's come in and, again, you don't have to do this, but I like to. I'm going to center the text in there. All right, these, I could write justify them. That doesn't look bad the way it is. I'm going to leave it like that. What else do we have? I'm going to click on here. I want you to do these for every project, whether you're asked to in the book or not. I want you to set the accept button. That'll be our calculate. We will set the cancel button. That will be our clear. We will set our start position to center screen, and we will set our tab order. This is going to be a read-only field, so we can set that read-only to true, and our tab order will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So tab order there, view tab order, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. View tab order again. Run the program. It's now centered. I must have made that right justified instead of center. We'll fix that in a minute. Looks like it's working. So let's fix that. So these two, the text align should be centered. There it is. Clear works. And exit works. Okay. So let me go back to here. I didn't use their names. You can use their names if you want to. All right, but you don't have to. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to grab all of this. Oops, try to grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to put that on the top of my program as a comment. And I don't think I'll need any of those. So I'll put it right here. Now, pretty this up just a little bit. There you go. Okay, so that's a comment. That's a sometimes referred to as a programming prologue. All right, so we've got that. Let's see what else we had in here. My names are going to be similar. They may not be identical to the ones the author used. It's totally fine. All right, I've done all this stuff as well. I renamed the form. I don't know if I called it calculate grade or something else. Grab all these comments here. I'm going to grab everything that's in here for a comment. All right, so I'm going to start with number 1. So going to be a big comment, but that's okay. All right. So let me add that in here. So number 1, open this project. So if you want to use theirs, I guess you can. I don't like the fact that I shouldn't have probably even given you the starts thing, but I did. So it's there, I guess, if you want to use that. All right, so they want to click event for the calculate button. I've already done that. Add this statement to the event handler to get the number grade the user enters. All right, so I'll put that in just a moment. So let me add this statement as they just said to do. I don't know if I called it TXT number grade or not. I believe I did. So in my calculate routine, I did call it the same thing. All right. So we've done that. Then add this statement to the event handler to declare and initialize the variable that will hold the letter grade. So string letter grade is going to be equal to nothing. Okay, so we'll do that second. Okay, so we've got those two done. I keep bouncing back and forth when I shouldn't be doing that, but I am. All right, then add this if-else statement to the letter grade. Pretty it up a little bit from what they have in the book. And of course, I've got comments in mind, so I'll have to remove those comments. That's okay. It'll take just give me a second here. You can watch me do this. Before I go on to step 4, which I will in just a moment, let's grab this whole if statement from the top. I've got all those asterisks in there that I will have to remove because it's going to give me a bunch of errors down below, but it's okay. So this will say declare and initialize program variables. All right. This will say determine letter grade based on number grade. Like I said, since you see how ugly that is. So all right, those are all fixed. C, D, F, those are all fixed. I should have probably just done a copy and replace, would have been faster, but that's totally fine. All right, so just the else's have to be fixed. All right, so I've now got everything in there. They're very generous with their grading scale here, which is okay. Number 4, add this statement to display the letter grade in the letter grade text box. Okay. Well, they gave you the whole program. I don't even know why I'm doing this because they're giving you everything. So that'll go here. All right. And what else do we have? Whoops. Why do I keep doing that? Add this statement to move the focus back to the number grade text box. Return to the form designer, then double click the exit button to generate a click handler for that button. Then add this statement. I don't want you to add that statement. I'll put it in here. Then add, no, I'm sending it to you. Then add this statement to the event handler to close the form. I don't want it to just say this dot close. Sorry. Run the app. So let's do this first. Let's fix this. Already got that code in there. It's right here. Again, I will send that to you today. There. It's all in there now. Run the app, enter a number between 0 and 100. And then click the calculate button. A letter grade should be displayed and the focus should return to the grade text box. Next, enter a different number to display a different grade. When you're done, press the escape key to end the app. That should be everything. Let's try it. All right. First, if I leave it blank, it's going to blow up. Okay. Also, if I put something in here that's non-numeric, it's going to blow up. Okay. Now, right now, it's any number greater than 88. So if I put a gazillion in there, you get an A. Okay. We'll fix that at a later time. But let's try this. So 90, you got an A. Okay. Doesn't look like it put the focus back there, but that's okay. Claire, 80, you get a B. Claire, 70, you get a C. Clear, 60. I think that might be an F already. No, D. Clear, 50. F. Clear, exit, all working. That's everything. And all I did was follow the author's steps. All right. So I'm going to ask that you do the same. All right. Well, we got done today in about a little over 11, or I'm sorry, a little over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. But I don't really want to go on. All right. Now, after you get done with this, after you get done with all this, file, save all. Remember what's in this folder, what is in this folder now, that's in your homework folder. Not from there, from where are we? So now in here, you've got your homework. We just did a completed homework, and now that's, thought that was in there, but there it is, completed homework. All right. You've also got in this section, that's where you'll put your written tests. All right. Also, once we get labs, that's where you'll put your labs. All right. Now, what you will have to do then is to right mouse click in here, do a git bash here. After you get done with both your written tests and the homework, and you'll do a git add dot. In fact, we probably don't have a git repo in here. First, let's create the git repo. Let me clear this and exit from this one. So we will do a git bash. So you'll come in here, and I gave you these steps already, but I'm going to show them to you again anyway. You will do a git init, and that will make the git repository. Then you will do a git add dot, and that will add everything in there for you. Then you will do a git commit -m, and that will put out there, so if I put a comment in here that says chapters 1 through 3, homework, labs, written tests, something like that. Enter, that'll put that in there. Then, and I'm not going to do this, you'll do your git push -u origin, and yours will either be main, and if that doesn't work, try master. Okay. Now, in order for that to work, you will have to go out to GitHub and make your own new repository that is called AWD1100 hyphen summer 2023 hyphen followed by your name. If you have questions on any of this, let me know. I'll be more than happy to work with you on this. All right. Now, I've already got the hands-on test that you'll be given Thursday. And on Wednesday, tomorrow, I have got to go right now. And this is what I'm going to do between now and 2:30 is to go in and create a pretest for you that will be similar to the actual test. I will give that tomorrow. I will email that to you tomorrow along with your email that you get in the morning. I'll put that in there as an attachment. Just so I don't forget it, I'm going to go out to invoice total again, and I'm going to have that code that's right here, and I'm going to put it in. So this is what you get from me every day. So hello, today is day 2. It is Tuesday, 5/16. I will say that it'll be something like today's video, it'll be video because it'll be 4 hours or less. Will be out on my YouTube channel at the following URL. All right, so it'll be something like this. You know, it'll be something with YouTube. I don't know. So today, Tuesday, 5/16, we what? Went over chapters 2, 3 from the Muroc text. Went over the chapters 1 to 3 written tests. Did the homework for chapters 1 to 3, really 2 to 3. There wasn't anything for 1. Reviewed Git/GitHub procedures. Now I'm going to say, here is the code for your exit button. There it is. All right, so there is that code. All right, your written test, everything is due by midnight Sunday. And finally, tomorrow, Wednesday, 5/17, number 1, we will go over the instructions for the chapters 1 through 3 pretest. You will be given 1.5 hours to complete the chapters 1 to 3 pretest. At 9:30, I will write the entire chapters 1 through 3 pretest in class. The entire session will be taped. What that means is, since I'm going to give you the instructions first, there will basically be the equivalent of about an hour and a half of dead time. All right, sorry about that. That's the best way I can think of doing it. And then finally, on Thursday, 5/18, we will have the chapters 1 through 3 hands on test. The test will be emailed to you by 7 a.m. and will be due on Thursday, 5/18 by 11:59 p.m. All right. So after I save this, this is the email that you're going to get. All right. After I save it and I go and produce the video and send it out to YouTube so I can actually put an address in there. All right. As always, if you have any questions, anything whatsoever, feel free to email me at any time. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. With that said, I will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. to go over the instructions for the pretest. Have a good rest of the day. I'll see you tomorrow.